As omnipresent and as overanalyzed as the original trilogy is, there really isn't much Star Wars we haven't seen or talked about or heard of. Even the officially unreleased Star Wars Holiday Special is constantly referenced in culture and even on Star Wars shows like The Mandalorian. But then I found the one piece of Star Wars media that is completely lost, completely under-discussed, and has Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Darth Vader, Boba Fett, R2-D2, C-3PO, Chewbacca, and many more all in it. On this episode of Lost Film File, I'm going to be talking about Return of the Ewok. Return of the Ewok was directed by David Toblin, who was a first assistant director. He worked on Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman 2 and a lot of stuff, as well as Return of the Jedi, and he was both the first assistant director and a second unit director on the Ewok battle scenes. So he was very involved in Return of the Jedi, or Revenge of the Jedi as it was called during production. David Toblin came up with this idea with Warwick Davis, kind of doing a behind-the-scenes type mockumentary type thing where he's both playing Warwick Davis, who wants to make himself known as an actor on the set of Revenge of the Jedi, as well as like him being in the Wicket costume and going around and like having fun on set and interacting with both the reality of the movie of Star Wars and the fantastical creatures and the actors like Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher. And they would shoot this on kind of weekends and on lunch hours, and Lucas was supportive, apparently giving film stock and actually paying for them to make this little thing. It doesn't seem like they fully understood what they were doing with it, but I think they were just going to make it like a fun little promotional thing. Unfortunately, it was never released. The only time anyone had really heard of it was it's referred to by David Toblin in a Starlog interview, but I don't know how much people even read the interviews of a first assistant director, no offense to him. It kind of went unknown for a very long time. It wasn't until in 1996 in a Star Wars Insider magazine that Warwick Davis referred to it, and suddenly, and also because there was an internet then and stuff, people were interested in this kind of rare, never before seen kind of Star Wars 24-minute special. During this time, no one's sure what happened to the copy at Lucasfilm. That seems to be completely lost, or at least there's no documentation on it, and that's sort of up for debate. But the one we do know about and its whereabouts is a VHS copy in Warwick Davis's Entertainment Center. If you've ever wondered what was in Warwick Davis's Entertainment Center, it was the best quality copy of Return of the Ewok on VHS, which apparently he'd play for friends and family, and even in 1996 I see that was the first real public screening in Watford, England. There's not much known about that screening. Sometimes I think maybe it wasn't like that big of a screening or something like that, but apparently that was the first real public screening of any kind in 1996. 1996 seems to be the year this movie like started to be known, and then it got its much bigger public screening in the first Star Wars Celebration in 1999, and played the first 3 Star Wars celebrations, and sometimes he'll play it at Star Wars or sci-fi conventions or Star Wars fan film conventions, as it's so rare and he has, the only copy. Now, he has let Lucasfilm borrow the copy so they can, make a copy of it and maybe restore it, but nothing has really been done with this. And no one could really see any of it other than these like kind of convention screenings until kind of YouTube and more streaming services happened. Now, I was actually able to find what this film is, and supposedly it's unfinished, and I would sort of debate that. I'd say it's like unfinished in that we're like a couple edits. It's like almost picture locked. It's like pretty done to me. They do refer to Revenge of the Jedi a lot within the film, but other than that, I don't really see why you wouldn't release it. It's not really as bad as the holiday special, and it has been talked about in some places. The Cinema Snob did a video about it a long time ago. I'm honestly a little surprised by how under talked about this film is. Now, it's not the greatest little thing ever, but it was a lot of fun. You have Warwick Davis in this kind of mockumentary thing, like, fresh-faced Warwick Davis going on to set, having bits with like David Prowse as a bodybuilder. He, even when he's like looking at the job board, looks at Star Wars, and like Mark Hamill pops out with his lightsaber and he's like, go back, go get him, Luke. And then like Luke goes back into a scene of Empire Strikes Back. Like, that's really funny. It's kind of cool how game the cast was for this, because if you watch like the other making of specials, it feels like and the holiday special, but mainly the making of specials, it feels like they're very contractually obligated to be there. And this, because it wasn't like a regular making of special, it's kind of like this funny thing. It feels like they were having a little bit more fun. I mean, it's not their greatest performance ever, and Harrison Ford does look definitely like he doesn't 100% want to be there, but I would say it looks a lot better than most of the making of in terms of their energy. And as someone who really ate up these making of specials when it was the mid-90s and there wasn't a lot of Star Wars stuff out there, I would rent VHSs or send away proof of purchases for a making of or a TV special they finally put on VHS or like Corn Pops or whatever. I would love those specials. But to be honest, I was always disappointed in the Classic Creatures making of Return of the Jedi special. I kind of prefer this to that, to be honest with you. But it is like a lot of fun. And if you love Ewoks and you love Star Wars, I don't see why you honestly should see this. I saw it through Dailymotion. It constantly gets taken down. I know I might be using the kind of lost film and lost media thing loosely, but if we're being honest, like the quality of the copy that's out there is made from someone recording the screening in 1999. Supposedly there was about 3 camcorders. I don't know how people know that, but supposedly there was a couple people recording the screening. Various Star Wars celebrations, and they used that and cut in more higher quality clips in the 2000s. They put some on StarWars.com. There was some on the blooper reel of the trilogy when it came out in the 2000s on DVD, and VH1 had a couple of the clips for some reason. And it's sort of interesting that Lucasfilm like clearly has a better quality copy. If you look at the thing, the copy you can see online cuts between what's clearly like bootlegged footage, like a cam footage of a screening, to like this higher quality footage. It's curious why Lucasfilm like clearly has some of it restored and then others don't, and that they've let some of this footage out and others they didn't. But what is this film about? Basically, a fresh-faced Warwick Davis comes onto a set. He has this little bit at the beginning where he's going through a job board, and then he decides to go into pictures, goes into a talent agency, has a fun little bit. Then he's assigned to be an Ewok. First, he puts on a Boba Fett outfit, which if you watch the bootleg, you can hear the audience at Star Wars Celebration losing their mind because they get a little Boba Fett. And then he gets his Ewok costume and is in the Wicket costume the entire time, which part of me thinks because he was a minor at the time, maybe they did that so they could get away with other people being in the Wicket costume so Warwick Davis could go to school or something, but I have no evidence of that. That's just something I think. He goes and tries to find where the Ewoks go. First, he runs into in dressing rooms of Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher in Return of the Jedi costumes. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher instruct him to go to a certain stage. He goes on there. He ends up sort of on the Death Star. He runs into Boba Fett, who's voiced apparently by David Tomblin. He runs into Darth Vader, which that is restored footage because that's cool footage, and he runs away as Darth Vader's like, come back here, Ewok, in David Prowse voice, not James Earl Jones. He runs into C-3PO and R2-D2, and Chewbacca goes around the set, can't find anyone, eventually goes to, I guess it's I don't know what he'd be called, is it the stage manager or whomever? He goes to him and C-3PO is complaining to him, and he turns C-3PO off. This bootleg seems to need to insert the scene of Empire Strikes Back where they do that. I feel like that's not in the original, but I don't know because I found that was the only part I was like, I don't need to be fucking reminded of how you turn off C-3PO. Like, if I'm watching Return of the Ewok, I clearly know that scene. You don't need to remind me of Star Wars right now, bro. So then after that, he turns off C-3PO. He told where Yoda is after he thinks he should go with the Muppets or something, but he goes to where Yoda is. Yoda gives him a galactic passport. He finds an astronaut at the airport. This is all real, by the way. He finds an astronaut at the airport, then flies to the moon of Endor, which I'm glad they refer to it as the moon of Endor, not Endor, because that's a specification that I definitely care about. And then they go to Endor, and he actually interacts with Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher again in costume on set on the moon of Endor, and right when they're on the log, like on the lookout, and that's like a cool sequence. He then kind of meets up with his other Ewoks, and he's happy, and then his parents take him home because they're upset he spent so much money on his day out. It is fun, and that sounds fun and a little goofy. It does play off of like you're never sure what reality you're sort of in, but it's sort of kind of fantastical and done through like this little kid, which Warwick Davis was younger. I believe he was 12 or 13 when he was in Return of the Jedi. Under the kind of guise of that, and he does seem very young, it sort of works because it has this imagination to it, and I thought David Tomlin sort of did a fun job with it. And I don't really get why this hasn't been released. I feel like if Disney Plus restored it and was like, hey, we have Return of the Ewok, people would be like, yeah, I'd watch that. You know, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's like you get like actual footage on the set of Return of the Jedi Jedi, which it is fun, like how much Revenge of the Jedi stuff they have up there. But other than that, I mean, if you're going to put this out anyway, you're going to put this out for fans who like know the Revenge of the Jedi things. So you don't have to explain it. It'd be cool for younger fans alike. And I don't really know why. And I kind of, when going through this, like, why do they have some stuff that's restored with like the main cast and everything like that, and then other stuff like towards the end they don't? So I'd say like they have some of the footage somewhere, but Lucasfilm uses all their extra stuff so much, and Disney has since owning Lucasfilm as well, that I kind of think there probably is a copy somewhere, or they sort of screwed it up and somehow Warwick Davis's VHS ended up being the only copy. But either way, I really wish this was out more for people. And sure, it's on Daily Motion right now and parts are on YouTube, but it's probably going to go away again. And this shouldn't be lost media, because Star Wars and Return of the Jedi is one of the most popular films of all time. And I love Warwick Davis, and I feel like he doesn't get enough of a shout out, from being a fan of Return of the Jedi to Willow to everything else he's been in. I had fun with this as a fan of specifically those things, but if you're really into Ewoks, I absolutely recommend this. Try to track this down. Daily Motion is your friend in this case. Sorry, YouTube. I thought it was a fun thing. You know, it's a shame it only plays at conventions and stuff. I think it gets a little rough and the bootleg's a little weird to jump from quality. It's already, you're watching a crappy bootleg, and quality jumps don't really help it in a lot of ways. But it is weird, like, this isn't really talked about as much. There's not really that many articles, even on Star Wars sites, about it. There's not really much about this, and I think that's kind of a shame. Like, you have this fun, fan servicey little thing on the set of Return of the Jedi with all the actors and Warwick Davis, and like, what else do you want out of life here? I just don't really get it. So it's worth the half-hour thing. I don't think it's for anyone who's not a fan of Star Wars, but I don't know why you would be watching it. I mean, it has like a little poster, which I'm pretty sure is not made by Lucasfilm or anything like that. I know this was a bootleg going around at the time between the Phantom Edit and the holiday special. This was another bootleg that would sell at conventions, but it never seems to be as popular, and I don't really understand why. I get the Phantom Edit's probably a lot cooler, and I get that the holiday special is more notorious, but I feel like this should be at least a little more accepted. So if you've ever wanted kind of more from Star Wars, and particularly the original trilogy, I recommend it, because you're not going to feel totally disappointed. You're going to you'll be like, that was fun and nice, and I think that's all they're really trying to do. It probably would have been a little bit more of a fun special than the classic Creatures, the Making Return of the Jedi one. In my perspective, it is. It's probably not as well made as that, but it's also unfinished. I don't even mind that they don't, Boba Fett and Darth Vader don't have the real voices, but they're not in it long enough that would be a serious issue to kind of bring back. And I prefer you did the original Boba Fett voice and not the one you guys changed it to, but that's a whole other thing. I don't think it would cost much to like get this thing ready to be commercially released, or at least on a streaming service, and it's a damn shame it's not. But until then, I guess it'll just have to live in this weird kind of bootleg format, and whoever put it together, I think, did a cool job, even adding credits to it, which apparently aren't there if you actually see it screened. Check out Return of the Ewok if you haven't. I really enjoyed kind of going down the kind of research rabbit hole that was Return of the Ewok. It's just fun to think about Warwick Davis and David Tomlin running around on the set of Return of the Jedi and making a little short film under the production of this massive behemoth blockbuster and having so much fun. And I think that really comes across in this cute little short film. So if you have seen or have any info on Return of the Ewok and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.